Good morning. We are live on YouTube, but we're going to bring our Facebook families in here. So hang tight for 1 second. Atlanta Falcons fans on All Falcons, check us out. And or Scott Kennedy Sports, both of those on Facebook. We'll get going and we'll try it again. We'll hit that button one more time. An error occurred. And welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. We're going to drink some more coffee here as we get going on a Monday morning. I'm so excited about combine stuff and draft news and offseason and free agencies kicking off, Nick. I can't even say Falcons Podcast. How are you doing this morning? Welcome in.
I am doing well. Had a productive weekend, so that was good, as much as one can when you have a newborn, and excited to talk combine. This will be the first show that I will have done since the on-the-field performances have taken off. So it's fun to kind of look back at that, not be too in the moment also at the same time, and talk about what looks like a really, really talented offensive class in the draft.
Yeah, on the offensive side of the ball. You look at it, and we come into it, it feels like a lot of years people, this is a little bit of a down class. Just give it some time. Just let it breathe. Let's see what these guys can do a little bit. But you start talking wide receivers in this class, you start talking offensive linemen in this class, and you start getting a little excited here. But we go live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on these channels because we like having the conversations. And I want to say hello to some folks that came in nice and early, including Victor Atkins, who he posted a bunch of stuff about the Falcons not interviewing J.J. McCarthy. Then he corrected himself, so that's okay. Joseph Smith, he says, good morning, Falcons fans. And Mr. Kennedy, I'm not a mister. He says, I'm 64 years old and have been a member of the Red and Black. You're a Mr. Smith. Since day one as a kid outside of Atlanta in the 60s, very excited for this upcoming season. I think it's starting to build a little bit. Some people are getting excited. That was one of the things that Arthur Blank just could not afford, bringing back Arthur Smith, is the collective that would have come out of the Falcons family. There's only thing, what's worse than anger is apathy. And people just would have tuned out. There's like, I'm not watching this again. But Raheem Smith, new quarterback, new coach. I think people are excited again, Nick.
They should be excited. I mean, based on how these shows have gone, they're very divided on the direction of the quarterback, but definitely excited. I do think that after, a long off season and just how incredible football is, you make a move at quarterback and they'd have you right back in it, even if it was Arthur Smith. But there's more excitement right now in the moment, of course. And Raheem Morris was awesome at the Senior Bowl. I mean, he had the media eating out of the palm of his hand. I definitely think the media working there in Atlanta face-to-face with the coach is going to enjoy themselves more than working with Arthur Smith last season. So that'll be fun to follow. And yeah, there should be excitement in Falcons fandom because you are in a good position, high pick and a great draft, and chance at a quarterback or a massive difference maker.
Those are good. And I'm not sure that even with the new quarterback would have been enough, because if you'd gone young quarterback, a lot of people would have been thinking, who trusts Arthur Smith with a new quarterback?
Yeah.
That's the problem. So again, I think there's excitement with the new. Now we'll see how that goes. We've been Falcons fans here. We know what excitement does to this team. It's the hope that kills. Ryan Adonis says, get your wide receivers in this draft. This draft is loaded with wide receiver talent. If you can get Neighbors, Rice, Leggett, or even Worthy, you can win. Yeah, there's lots of guys in there. I mean, I'm really starting to get to I don't want to use a number 8 on a wide receiver, Nick. It's like I can get guys. I can get difference makers without having to go number 8. Even if one of those guys are there, they're really good, I know, but there's not nearly as much depth at other positions that are a big need too, like edge rusher. If I'm sitting there at 8 and I got Jared Verse and Dallas Turner to choose from, or Rome Odunze, I said on Friday, Nick, you're going to have a hard time talking me out of one of those edge rushers after the combine this year.
Yeah, Rome Odunze, though, you're not going to have a chance at Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. I think we can say that pretty surely. The question is, Rome Odunze there? And we'll see.
You still there?
I'm here.
Okay.
I
started up Facebook at the same time so I can watch the chat in there.
Okay.
And it said something. It goes. I hit pause and it doesn't. You have to pause it twice. And it said
Okay.
something to me right at the same time that you would have said something. And I'm
Okay.
like, okay, Rome Odunze is what? Nick,
It,
keep
it
going.
it froze on me a little bit. No, Rome Odunze is awesome. I think I'd probably still take the best player. I don't know if you saw there with after the combine, he was so set on trying to get his 3-cone that he was there like really, really late working through it, trying to get the I think 6-second time
Wanted a
around
6'6".
6'6". Yep.
Yep.
So impressive dude. Also the fact that he tested so big at around 220 and it was athletic as he was. I mean, he's a special player too.
Did he come in at 220?
I think he was about 215, 220. I
I
thought.
looked at the numbers, and I obviously I love him. He was 6'3", 212. Still
Okay,
big. I
212.
didn't realize he was even that tall. And they round. They don't the official. So he's probably 6'3" and a little bit of change too. So again, as you said, good options
Yep.
at 8. I want to say hello to some more folks who've come in. Edward Brown coming in, kicking us off with the super chat over on YouTube. Thank you, Edward. He says, I saw a lot of receivers work out at the combine. I am salivating thinking about some of the guys who could be in a Falcons uniform this upcoming season. Absolutely. And again, you're talking about, well, this guy's good, this guy's good, this guy's good. They're all rising. Yeah, but for every guy that rises, someone has to fall.
Mm-hmm.
It was doing recruiting rankings. It's like you move one guy up 20 spots. That means 20 guys just moved down. And in recruiting, that's 20 players that were going to other teams. So you just pissed off 20 fan bases to move one guy up. So somebody's got to move down. Zero-sum game. You're picking in the second round. Somebody's going to be there.
Yeah.
We talk about these receivers all the time. And, some of the guys we wanted to watch, well, one of those guys kind of knocking on the door of the back end of the first round, Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey was phenomenal. He had an absolutely phenomenal workout. How about, the stars of the Senior Bowl? Two guys I think that stood out. They actually had mic drop moments. They took off and left. Ricky Pearsall and Roman Wilson. Ricky Pearsall, the numbers that he put up were unbelievable.
Yep.
Overall, let me look him up real quick. I was looking at it a second ago. Ricky Pearsall, he had a 4.41 40, which sounds like pedestrian at this moment. But he had a 42-inch vertical with a 10.9 broad jump, a 6.64 L cone, and a 4.05 shuttle. That's all pro corner numbers.
Yeah. Good. Top 50
God.
Pick. Somebody's going to have to fall though, right? There's not going to be 10 wide receivers taken in the first round. The Texas guys both really stood out. Adonai Mitchell's tape is sloppy, but the athleticism at the size and the coordination is pretty wild. I love that his interviews too. He talked about, trying to cheat and, kind of being a pest and really thinking, the game within the game when the matchups go. If he can even become just an average route runner, he's going to be awesome. You know how much I've been hyping up Xavier Worthy on here, Scott. We didn't even talk about it yet. The all-time 40 went down. And I'm not double grading him because I already had him fast. It's not like he's going to get a bump because of that. He was a late first, early second. He leaves a late first, early second. But that was a really good player. I mean, he dealt with a broken hand, and that led to some drops. But he had unbelievable numbers even as a true freshman at Texas. I mean, it's multiple years of great play from Xavier Worthy. You mentioned Roman Wilson. You mentioned Ricky Pearsall. There was one more I wanted
McCaffrey.
Yep, yeah, he had a good one. But then I think you have to also talk about Brian Thomas and how he tested at his size. I mean, he might end up a top 15 pick in the end. I mean, how many defensive players are we going to have in the top 15? 2? Maybe 3? It's going to be pretty wild.
John Harrell comes in. He says, trade back, get another second, draft Jared Verse, edge, Ladd McConkey, wide receiver, and Kingpin, Braden Fisk at defensive tackle. If you can get another second rounder in there, it's starting to look like one of those drafts that, it was, what was it, 2 years ago? I said like the strength of this draft's really, between 25 and 75. That's where this could be too. This one might be all the way 1 through though. Is the difference with this draft is it's strong at the top 2. Top
it reminds me more of
top also.
It reminds me more of 2021.
Yeah.
Where I think there's going to be a line probably about 12, pick 15, but then there's going to be a lot of late first, early second grades. And then Still, I still come out of this thinking, Scott, like the day 3 talent is very poor in this class, but like the top 50, the top 64 going to be very good. So I don't know how much I'm wanting to stockpile 3rd-round picks, but if I can get multiple picks in the top 60, top 70, I'd be feeling pretty good. And if you're like the Falcons here, who a lot of the fans, if they're not quarterback, they really want defense, trading back from 8 is probably your best bet, because I feel like if you're not taking a quarterback, wide receiver, or offensive tackle in the top 15, I don't know if you're getting absolutely best value. I would say, I mean, Turner is up there. I mean, what do you 7-foot wingspan? The way he tested, I wish he was a little bigger, but I mean, he's unbelievable athlete. Big enough. Yeah. 6'2", 247. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but that sticks out to me. But the unbelievable wingspan, the athleticism. So he's one that I think he will work his way in the top 10. But after that, if your defense are bust, I think you trade back. I mean, Chop Robinson had what do you run? A 4.48 at 250 pounds. Is an unbelievable 10-yard split. You had both Terrion Arnold and Quinyon Mitchell have awesome. Quinyon Mitchell especially awesome in the drills. Arnold interviewed amazingly. And you mentioned Jared Verse earlier. Not the best in terms of the agilities, but the strength, the length, 33.5 arm length, the size, the explosiveness. I mean, he's a glass eater up front. I love those type of guys that are just, mean. He plays mean. So if you want a defense, I think trade back is probably the move at 8 if you can.
The other wide receiver I wanted to call out real quick, because we can get into all these guys, and we'll go into it Wednesday for, another almost 90 minutes like we did. This show's about 30, 35 minutes. Johnny Wilson. When I see a wide receiver that's 6'7", what's the worry about a receiver that tall?
Inability to throttle down and separate because of momentum.
Change the direction.
Yeah.
Yep, change the direction. Is he going to be stiff? Is he going to be a little stiff out there? He had a 4.11 shuttle time at 6'6" and change, 231 pounds. He's actually put on 4 pounds since the Senior Bowl, where he looked really good. And he came out of this thing with the 4th best shuttle time among wide receivers at 4.11. If I flip that thing to cornerbacks, it would have been the 3rd best shuttle time of corners at 6'6.5", 231 pounds. Dude, make this brother an edge. Come on. The numbers that he's putting up they're unreal. I know there were questions. The Florida State fans, there's a lot of guys that watch Florida State, including John Harrell, watched more and said he had trouble catching the ball. Okay, I get that. I didn't see that at the Senior Bowl. He was natural as can be catching the ball. When he was catching hip passes, backhanding hip passes that are coming low to him, he's got it in him. Now he just need the consistency. I want to say hello to a few more folks that have come in, like Michael Ronquillo. Good to see you, Mr. Sunrise. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast. Jeremy's in here also. If only GM could work the draft like we can work a mock simulator. Oh, yeah, I can just hit refresh and do it over again. Where was one of the comments I really liked? Miss String Guy coming in. Says, good morning, Falcons fans. Free agency starting, so that should answer some questions. Yeah, the Falcons are an important team to the rest of the NFL because of what they might do at quarterback. Now, I put in the title of this show was Quarterback and Edge. Atlanta Falcons get both in a wild Pro Football Focus post-combine mock draft. How wild? Well, let me drop this in the chat. Y'all know I like to do that. Gonna put this in there if you want to give it a read later. But post-combine mock draft, they have them. Gordon McGinnis. Gordon McGinnis has the Falcons taking Jared Verse, the edge, at number 8. Verse has improved as a pass rusher every season in college. Is coming off a season that saw him with a career-high 90.8 pass rush grade. 7th among edge defenders in this class. He was good. He was good in testing too. All that is as well. You have Dallas Turner at pick 14. Okay. Those are similar players. I can make it. I'd probably go Dallas Turner first over Jared Verse, but I'm not going to argue with you. They're close enough that I'm not going to have a big "what are you doing" debate with Nick if he says I like Jared Verse better than Dallas Turner. Okay, yeah, I can see that. That's fine. Those are close. But then where this gets interesting, if you scroll all the way down to 30, he has the Atlanta Falcons trading back into the first for J.J. McCarthy with the Baltimore Ravens. He's got the Ravens receiving the 2024 second, number 43 overall, a third, so 43 and 79, and a fourth, 43, 79, and 110, and a fifth, number 142. So basically the rest of their damn draft. And the Falcons get this year's number 30 and then a 2024 third. So they get a third back. And they get J.J. McCarthy. Nick, what are your thoughts on that the likeliness, the deal, et cetera, et cetera?
I don't know if this is a Will Levis situation last season or Malik Willis 2 years ago, but coming out of the combine, I would be floored if McCarthy isn't going in the top 10. And again, I wasn't over the moon with his throwing. I thought it was good enough. I mean, you could see that he had better arm talent than most of the guys there, and a really good release. But I don't think he is like a no doubt top 10 any draft class kind of guy. But falling all the way to where he did there, I would say that is extremely unlikely. I guess he interviewed awesome. Coaches just love the guy, how the guy's wired. So I think that shout out to PFF for providing the content and the mocks and everything like that. And McGinnis, God bless you. But I'm not in on this mock draft in a number of picks scrolling down. That said, obviously I don't have enough hubris to be like, oh, I know what's going to happen on March 4th, 2024. So good for him for being, against the grain a little bit. But McCaffrey McCarthy that far down, unless he's injured or something happens between now and then, which knock on wood, hopefully not. I can't imagine him falling past pick 13.
8.
Eight too, but I'm being conservative. I'll go 13.
Yeah. Red Swarm comes in. Breaking news: the Bucs and Mike Evans have reached an agreement on a 2-year, $56 million agreement with 35 guaranteed. Good for them. That is legit. The news on that one. So thank you for bringing it in here, Red Swarm. That takes one of the top free agent wide receivers off the board, and that puts, I think, Michael Pittman at the head of the class, without a doubt. And he's probably going to get franchise tagged if he doesn't get re-signed, especially since he says, yeah, I'd play on a franchise tag. Okay, well, they're working on it, but I don't think Michael Pittman hits free agency. So he's going to end up a Colt. So it's not a great year for free agent wide receivers anyway. And I think you overpay for free agent wide receivers. I would much rather go free agency for Danielle Hunter than free agency for a wide receiver. I'd rather have, for this team especially, I'd rather have Danielle Hunter at $20 million than Mike Evans at $22 million for this team especially. And then go draft one of these guys that are running circles like the Roadrunner out there with the Elcones and the size and all that type of thing. I feel like you can come out of this with two picks. Now, getting back to the PFF's, their scoring is what their grades when you go through their simulator. Who they really don't like is Jaden Daniels. He's like 25th on there. I'm like, oh, they really don't like. I'm like, wait a minute, it's Jaden Daniels. He still has him going third. 1, 2, 3, quarterback. Marvin Harrison Jr. That's been the consensus for 2 months. But Jaden Daniels, I came out of the combine thinking, I don't know if the Falcons can get him at 8, let alone at 30. I'll take the over-under on that if someone wants to put some money on it. If someone wants to set the over-under at 25, I'll take the under. He's not lasting that long, Nick. And like you said, unless there's an injury or something. Keith and Ellen Johnson coming in. He says, good morning, guys. Great group of receivers. Would love to see us get McConkey or Pearsall. Even Roman Wilson. Michigan, who had a phenomenal Senior Bowl week, comes in at 4.39. So it's one of those things where I like what I see. Now let's make sure the measurables are good. And then you do that in reverse also. Ooh, the measurables were really good. Let me recheck out his film, or at least check it out again. Check it out for the first time if I hadn't before. And Pearsall, McCaffrey, Wilson, McConkey, other Wilson. There's some dudes in this class at wide receiver, Nick.
It's hard to say who didn't step up. Like guys who were just okay, I feel like their stock dropped just because everybody else rose so much. Troy Franklin out of Oregon ho-hum. Didn't really do too much for me. McMillan and Polk, Washington fell a bit. Malachi Corley probably also down a bit, just because, guys who didn't stand out. Not that they were necessarily bad in anything, but those are all ones. One of them might not even have tested. I'm not sure, but those are guys just looking at the names like, oh yeah, can't remember anything that he did. String guy comes out. Nick, what quarterback do you think did the best? Out of the throwing drills, of course, it looks like my internet froze here for 1 sec. There we go. Out of the throwing drills, I thought that Penix looked pretty good. Now, this is a drill. This is an event made for Penix because there's not pressure. He's not really having to work tight windows over the middle of the field between multiple defenders. He's just able to static drop back and sling it. And no doubt about it, he's got an arm and he can do stuff outside the numbers. So I thought Penix looked pretty good. If the medicals came back clear, I still don't think I'm taking him in the first round, but it was the Athletic Podcast with Robert Mays and Danielle Racino, I believe, and they talked about Penix being closer to pick 100 than pick 40 coming into the combine. So I'm sitting there like pick 50, pick 60. Like give me Penix there if the medicals are okay. I thought he looked pretty good in the throwing on air.
Yeah, for what they're doing out there, hell, Joe Milton may have been the best guy out of all of them out there. But again, it's the after season stuff means the least for the quarterbacks relative to everybody else. The NFL Combine means less for the quarterbacks than it does everybody else as far as the evaluations go.
I did want to give a shout out to one more. He was probably close to an undrafted free agent guy, but now he might end up being a round 5, round 6 kind of guy. Just because he had, I think, an injury this season and did not have a lot of offensive talent around him. And that is Devin Leary out of Kentucky. He transferred from NC State. He had a lot of hype at NC State and then got just kind of fell off in 2022, transferred to Kentucky this last year. I thought Leary looked somebody like, obviously, not going to be an early draft pick. He's going to be day 3, but there's enough physical arm talent there that I would be intrigued by taking a very late lottery pick shot just to have as a backup.
Yeah, I thought you might say the kid from BYU with his size. JJ McCarthy ran the shuttle and the 3-cone at 6.82 and 4.23. Those are wide receiver numbers that he put up. So the athleticism as far as that goes, check. The question isn't necessarily why didn't they throw more. The question would have been is if they had struggled, if Michigan had struggled and he didn't throw more. And then I've got questions. I'm like, wait, you've got this guy with a rocket arm and athleticism like this. How come you didn't make him the focal point of your offense? I didn't have to. It was what, 23-1? Again, if they're losing, I have questions about it. When you're winning it all, I have no questions. Just I want to see more. I want to see more. And that's what the offseason has been for McCarthy. Rusty, like he's not sold on Turner reverse at 8. He thinks that might be a little bit of a reach. It depends on how far. If it's 3 or 4 picks, I think the need, and it's not even really 3 or 4 picks. It's really where is your grade on these guys. If you put a numerical grade on them, you've got Rome Odunze as a 98 as available on your board, and the next guy is Jared Verse at like 90, then you go wide receiver at 8. I think that. But if it's close on this, I'm going edge for this team. I'm going edge for the Atlanta Falcons.
And when teams build their boards, Scott, they talk about a vertical board and a horizontal board. So it's not a pure, ordinal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 board. It's tier 1 list of players, tier 2 list of players. And then you can kind of get into the nitty gritty, talk to the coaches. How would we separate these guys on this board based on what happened beforehand, blah, 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 blah. So you're talking about the horizontal board there, guys in the same tier that are so close that really it's going to come down to personality, the work ethic, how they're vibing with your coaches there. I mean, because a lot of these guys are going to be graded closely. So I would not be against Turner. I think Verse is probably because Verse is a little tighter, because Verse is 2.5 years older. I would have Turner over Verse just because it is such a athletically oriented position and a grown man's position. So the fact that Turner's doing this as young as he is, there's still meat on the bone. But either of those guys, you shouldn't be upset. I think, though, again, I keep coming back to it, Scott. If you're not taking a wide receiver or edge or quarterback or offensive tackle, I'm seeing if I can trade down to a team that's maybe want to take that 4th quarterback. Maybe somebody wants to come up for a wide receiver or offensive tackle to jump the Bears/Jets. That's certainly possible as well. So I think I would trade back if I'm so defensively oriented as the chat appears to be.
Yeah, I think, and there's a question here I wanted to hit. Thank you, Eric. Would you take one of the defensive ends over JJ McCarthy 8? Probably not. That said, I think this is done before. I think the Falcons have their quarterback before they go to the draft.
We're on Kirk Cousins' watch, Scott. Coming out of the combine, we talked a lot about.
We talked about Fields at the beginning of the week. The end of the week, the name was
Justin Fields, and it sounds like the market for Fields is teams know that they're going to have to trade him, and there's so many options at quarterback, especially in the draft, that teams don't feel as compelled to give up a massive. This is what the buzz is, at least. The teams don't feel as compelled to give up big capital for him. So the Bears are kind of like, well, I guess we sit for now. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's much lower than we thought going in, maybe just even a third-round pick for Fields. And then the matriculation for that, guys like Mac Jones only going for a 6. It's going to be some cheap options out there. But as far as quarterback watch for the Falcons now, I know people could really push it against me last Wednesday when I was talking about it, but we are very much on Kirk Cousins' watch. Sounds like Kirk Cousins is going to do what he did last time, and he's going to take the biggest deal with the most guaranteed dollars he possibly can. And it sounds like Minnesota is really not wanting to give him a third year. They want to give him 2 years, but not a third year. And if that's the kicking point there, he might hit the market. And we're on potentially New England's an option. The Commanders are an option if they want to trade back, if they're not as infatuated with the quarterbacks as the media is, which is possible. Seems like coming out of the combine, everybody's like, it's Caleb Williams and everybody else. So maybe 2 and 3 is not as valuable if Caleb Williams is that far apart. And also, Kirk Cousins is really good. So we're on Kirk Cousins' watch for the Falcons right now. If he doesn't go back to Minnesota, I'd say the number one most likely team is the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, the talk last week was 2 years, $70 million, 50 guaranteed, which is a 1-year option. Now, I've said if you were to get Fields, I was thinking a second-round pick, Jeremy, to get Fields. But we'll see. The market may be softening up. By middle of last week, it felt like Fields was done. He's celebrating in his kitchen about going home, which is, Atlanta. So we'll see. And then by the end of last week, it was, they really like Kirk Cousins more. And this one was coming from Atlanta people. They like Kirk Cousins more. 2 years, $70 million with 50 guaranteed. You might as well throw a third year on that and just say 3 years, $110 million, because that doesn't matter. It's the 50 guaranteed that matters, is what matters. Once that's the only number that matters. Once you have that, I'm not going to say matters again. Once you have that, you can string out the contract longer. And if he plays well, fine. That's what you're paying him anyway. If he doesn't, you're out of it after 1 year and you can, if you front load his base salary, guaranteed salary in the first year, then even your dead cap hit the next year isn't very bad either. So it ends up being a 1-year deal. The $50 million guaranteed is a 1-year deal. It's a 1-year commitment. No. That's not a bad option. And Ryan Dodonis says, I'm starting to wonder if Fields is the right option. Again, if you can come out of this, let's say you went Rome Odunze at 8, Danielle Hunter, and Kirk Cousins, and Justin Fields, and then in the second round you pick up, Braden Fisk or somebody. You get a safety. You can do so many different things because the phrase is you get what you pay for. And right now, Justin Fields isn't a red hot commodity, Nick.
No. And again, there's just so many options at quarterback. So I know that, again, Chad again pushing against me on Kirk Cousins, but he's missed in the NFL. The only time he's missed time is because of that Achilles injury, and he's already back and throwing again. So if you are signing him into any sort of money, you've done the medical work on him and you trust him. So he has experience in the exact offense you are going to run. I think he even brushed elbows with Zach Robinson in Washington with the Commanders for a bit when they were both out there. And he would be just a big fit. And also, this Falcons team, you heard Raheem Morris talk about it. Last season, the issue was the quarterback. That really sounds like a team that's a quarterback away. How many of these rookie quarterbacks are going to come in raring to go immediately without, the onboarding process, 12 to 18 games? I don't know. So Kirk Cousins is not a long-time solution. I think you're still obviously looking to – I wouldn't even be against taking Kirk and drafting McCarthy at the same time, as crazy as that sounds. But I think that it's a possibility, and people should be prepared for that as a reality, because if it's not Minnesota, I do think it will be Atlanta.
Yeah. So like we're saying, the Falcons matter to the rest of the NFL in this case, because usually they don't, because of what they end up doing at quarterback, because they've got more money and a higher pick than most teams that are also looking for quarterbacks that aren't in the top 3. So the second level of quarterbacks after the first 3 in the draft, Atlanta's a big time player here. And that's what matters. And yes, there was sad news over the weekend. Michael Ronquillo, thank you. He says, because I've been meaning to mention this and have forgotten. ESPN NFL reporter Chris Mortensen passed away at the age of 72. Battle cancer. Georgia, he lived, I won't say Georgia native, but he lived here, and he's lived here for a long time. His son went to Landmark Christian on the South Side and was a recruit, and coming through when I had first started and was covering the state of Georgia. And I got to meet Chris during that whole, while he was going through. Nice guy, great dad. Was always somebody you could count on to be professional. If Chris Mortensen was saying it, you could believe it. And that's about as, for the professional part of his job, that's the best thing you can say about a reporter. I trusted him. And he will be missed. And he was a great dad and father too. And I was thankful I got a chance to get to know him while his son Alex was coming through. So he will be missed. Thank you for a reminder. We get into this and wanted to say something about that too, because he is one of Georgia's own as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, just really a tragedy. I don't know if you had a chance to see Daniel Jeremiah talk about him in the booth, but he was pretty much in tears just talking about how he just texted him yesterday, and one of his best friends in life and mentor and just an amazing person and loved football. Was that he's texting him about how Spencer Rattler going to do today. So Chris Mortensen, NFL, it's one of the things that sucks about getting old. You see these people who you look up to and hear from for years, and, they go away, but definitely left an impact on many people. And it's not much more you can ask for or want. So sound like a good guy. Rest in peace, and thinking of his family, and NFL will miss him.
Yep, for sure. Midas Johnson, what's going on, Falcons family? I hope I didn't miss too much. You can always check back. We're about to get out of here. I want to say hello to Pamela Johnson, who was in here earlier. Let me see. T. Terry comes in. He says, if Fields gets a training with Zach Robinson and the Falcons, he would be a bad man. That's kind of what you're counting on. The upside is still there. Zach Kelberman and I were doing Mile High Huddle podcast last night and talking about retread quarterbacks. And there's certain guys I don't necessarily consider retreads yet. I don't consider Justin Fields a retread. I still consider him a prospect. He's 25 years old, about to be 25 years old. I don't consider him washed out. Hendon Hooker's name came up. He's still a prospect. He's not a retread. That said, he's 26 years old.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Hendon Hooker was quite that old. Trey Lance, Mac Jones, these guys could be had for a song if you want to come in and work them out. That's possible. Kilu says, problem with Cousins is no long-time solution. Looking for a new quarterback every 2 years kind of stinks. Yeah, it does. But building a team to win in year 3 and then not getting the quarterback stinks worse when you waste everybody else. So this Atlanta Falcons team is ready to win now. They really are. Go for it, like the Rams did when they went and got Matthew Stafford, and they got a Super Bowl out of it. Then they struggled, then they built back. There might be some of that, but the Falcons are used to struggling. I'd take some winning. Some winning would be nice. That would be good. Big Shot Agenda, he's not up about Kirk Cousins. He says Raheem Morris would be fired by the 3rd season if the Falcons sign Cousins. That's calling your shot, man. I think Cousins, if Cousins was here last year, the Falcons make the playoffs.
Easily.
And Arthur Smith is still your coach.
Yeah, he's the borderline top 10 quarterback, and he was playing, honest to God, Scott, he might have been playing the best football of his entire career.
Stats-wise, he was.
Before he got injured. The last 2 years in that Kevin O'Connell offense, of course, they have Justin Jefferson, but he was really in his own. And I think the style of offenses today, where it's a lot of the middle of the field stuff where you're having to manipulate linebackers and layer the football and be really good within the pocket, Cousins was a top 10 quarterback in that regard. So I don't know. I think that I would be open to it if I was you guys, but yeah, you can disagree with me. It's not gonna hurt my feelings at all. Only a little bit, actually, but no, it's okay. We got Robert coming in.
Yeah. One last question, then we're going to get out of here.
Yeah. Who wins the Broncos-Falcons game this year if they play the current rosters? It's the Falcons. I don't think the Broncos are a very good team. I think they played well above their talent level last season thanks to coaching, and I'm expecting some talent regression this year. Also, the players that they gave up in the Russell Wilson and Sean Payton trade, those first and second round picks, those are guys that would just be coming into their own this season. So they're going to have that talent gap from developing up and coming players as well that we haven't even seen yet in Denver. So I would be taking Atlanta without a doubt.
That's the Jarrett Stidham versus Taylor Heineke Bowl. It'd be ugly football. That's what I could promise is it'd be ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Who's playing wide receiver? So that would be it would be ugly. They still have Russell Wilson right now, but they're not playing Russell Wilson. Trey Smooth says you go from 8 wins to 10 wins with Cousins. That's worth $50 million? You go from 7 wins because you've had 7 for 2 years in a row to 10 wins. And yes, in the bottom line, it's well worth $50 million for these billion-dollar companies to get 3 extra wins and make the playoffs. And, talking about making the playoffs, I agree with Sam here because I have said this as well. If Justin Fields is the quarterback of this Atlanta Falcons team last year, the Atlanta Falcons also make the playoffs. I believe that too.
Yeah, I think
you can say the same thing about Fields. You can win. You would win the division with him. I agree. I absolutely agree.
I think with Fields, you're talking about going from 7 to 9 wins on this team last year. I think with Cousins, if he was healthy the full year, we're talking from 7 to 12 wins.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he was just do Kirk Cousins ref. That's how I look up everybody's stats. Just Google it and go look at the numbers he was putting up in 8 games. He was on pace for a career season last year. He was playing really well, and that was the first time he's gotten hurt since like the second season of his career. He's played every game since except one because they sat out the last game of his season for like 8 straight years. The guy's as durable as Matt Ryan. He just had an injury. Doesn't make an injury durability. We'll see. Yeah. There's red flags on every single quarterback. There absolutely are, and we've said that. That's why they're available to the Falcons as a 4th pick because the first 3 picks are going in the draft.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The thing about Fields versus Cousins, too, we talked about it on Wednesday, is that, check out, I think it's, Draft Dogs. Just look up Justin Fields' injury history versus Kirk Cousins' injury history, and they have a probability of injury again. And Fields' injury risk is very high. If you look at the list of injuries he's had since he's been in NFL, it's like 12. It's unbelievable. And then you look at Cousins' injuries, it's 2. There was 1 while he played at Michigan State, and there was the Achilles last season. I mean, he's been an Iron Man. So, I mean, you can question coming off the Achilles. I get that. We don't know, though, so I won't pretend to know. It'll come down to the medicals. But as far as injury history and risk, it's not a question. Fields is much more injury risky.
One more thing real quick. I want to say hey to Bucks, Braves, and Bolts coming in. And then we're going to hop over to Mile High Huddle to talk more combine and quarterbacks. If you want to join us at youtube.com/Mile High Huddle. But he says, Scott, Nick, who do you tag? Baker Mayfield or Antoine Winfield on this one?
Oh, man. I think you try to work out a deal for Baker first. I know they just got the Mike Evans deal done, so that's good. The Winfield tag would be less, but I think you can probably live a little bit better with Winfield on the move than Baker. I wonder if Tampa Bay is a dark horse spot for Justin Fields as well. I mean, I think I talked about that on Wednesday. I brought that up, but I think I'd probably tag Baker just because it's just 1 season, and I'd rather keep the quarterback in the end. But if it's purely financial, Winfield's going to cost less. But yeah. Baker did a good thing last year. I think I'd be more interested in keeping the gang together on the offense than bring back Winfield.
I'd rather work out a deal with Baker, and because I could get it for cheaper than a tag. The tag would be $40-something million probably.
He's going to want more guarantees. He's going to want more guaranteed than what the tag would be.
Yeah. Okay. So you give him 50 guaranteed across 3 years, and then you figure that out. That would lower your cap hits substantially. No. And Antoine Winfield, I would tag because that would be probably in the neighborhood of 15 million. I don't know off the top of my head, but that's an educated guess. But we're going to get out of here, y'all. We will be back on Wednesday. We'll go into this. We'll do a mock draft on Wednesday, post combine, and see what it says. I promise you it's not going to be Jared Verse at 8 and JJ McCarthy at 30. That's going to be a little tough, as PFF had. That'd be a great scenario. I'd love that. You're missing out on some good day 2 guys in that case. But if you get your edge and you get your quarterback, so be it. You'll be fine with that. So we're going to get out of here. Thanks so much for joining us today. I want to say thanks to our Super Chat superstars, Edward Brown kicking us off, Michael Ronquillo coming in, Keith and Ellen Johnson over on Facebook, and John Harrell over on YouTube as well. Thank you so much to all of you. Come join us on Wednesday. If you're just watching, hit the subscribe. If you're listening after the fact, give us a rating. We haven't had a rating forever on Apple Pods. I'd like to see one. It's been almost a year. So lots of listeners, but no ratings. Give us, I guess I'd rather have the listeners for sure. So we're going to get out of here. Happy Monday, everybody. Y'all have a great week. We'll see you next time.
Peace.